Hi, I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now.
Man, I am good. I am super stoked for this interview, my friend.
Cool.
Today's a good day. How are things on the West Coast?
They're doing very well. If you hear the noise out the back and it starts to get too noisy, you just let me know.
Yeah, okay. No, I think we'll be okay. We'll get my audio people to do some work or whatever. And the recording we get is better than the one that we don't get. So, really.
Yeah, no, but my schedule's just started freeing up because we just finished the Halbertology program. So I've been doing on-camera webinars like 3 to 5 a week for the last 6 weeks.
That's a lot, but it sounds like it was a huge success. I mean,
it was freaking amazing.
Really? Really?
I honestly, here's the thing. I always can find I can oversell anything easily, and then what I do in marketing is you say the very best thing that you possibly can say about something. So I say the dream copy, right?
Right.
And then I back it down to where I can definitely look somebody in the face and stand by what I said. But it is usually the ultimate. I cannot, if you gave me a half a page, I couldn't explain exactly how great, I couldn't even oversell how great the program was. It is, the best way I've found to put it so far is if I was going to die and I can only leave my kids one program, Halbertology would be it.
Really, eh?
Yeah, inside you, there's a lot of Gary Halbert material. There's a lot of my material and my brother's material, but we really designed a program where we could start tapping into the brains of people we really wanted to learn from and ask them the questions. And they came in, and it was all no pitch, and it was, okay, hey, how do you do this, and what's the best, font sizes, and what's your tempo, and where how do you spy on your competition, everything.
So let me ask a quick question. Just, we haven't started the interview yet or anything, but just out of personal curiosity, what do you think were some of the key things that helped make it be so amazing?
Well, first, it gives you a nice view of all the different possibilities through all the different channels. So we had PPC experts, social media experts, and one guy was just a LinkedIn expert, and the other one's a YouTube expert, and so forth like that. And I think that the fact that we cover the basics, but we do that very quick, and then we're actually asking them and we're digging out of them what's working right now and what's the tactics. So they're sharing with stuff that they're making other people join their $25,000 groups to explain and all that. So that's the problem with it, is trying to explain how great it is, because very little of the copy was I expecting to learn something new, but I did end up taking a few notes on everybody, and in some cases took a lot of notes, based on what some of the copywriters said. But it was just, what you would have to do now is, if you take the program, and we're going to probably raise the price of it and put it in the can, and then maybe add a part-time live element to it. What you would do is you would pick on, I would suggest everybody follows the 10,000-foot strategy stuff. So there's, John Rowley was really good at explaining the mindset of how to run a business, grow a business, outsource, and do all that without driving yourself insane. And then there are full-on content strategy pictures that were given by a few of them. And you would want to start with that and then pick one channel, implement it, put it into action, and then decide what you want to add to it, one facet of marketing at a time. And it's kind of what you do with regular offline marketing. So, for example, you run a direct mail piece to some lists. And lists, of course, are the most specific and hardcore buyers. These are people proven to be interested in something. And then if that's really, really successful and you have a broad appeal, then you test that in newspapers and magazines. and you expand out the different channels you market your program or product or services to until it's no longer profitable. And that's kind of what you would do here. So if you were, you'd first try and stick with the thing that's the most appropriate, and that most appropriate is almost always where the majority of your audience and traffic are going to. Like I had a guy that I was talking to not too long ago, and he was selling a product, and it was about basketball, like how to jump and stuff higher and stuff like that. And his market, I was explaining things to him he didn't understand about his market, because I could really, my skill set is really being able to set foot into the mind of the prospect and knowing what makes them tick and what makes them excited and buy. And I told him, I said, look, he said, I'm doing a Google campaign now, Google PPC. So when people type in like how to dunk or how to jump high or whatever, that he'll pay to be higher up on the results there. And I tried to explain to him, I said, your market are teenagers, right? And he agreed. And I said, you should take that same effort, but put it in YouTube, because that's where they are. The teenagers are on YouTube channels. That's where they're searching how to jump and how to dunk. It's you just got to understand things like that. Who's doing what. Middle-aged people are now taking over Facebook. Kids don't even want to be on that old crappy thing.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. And especially when you said that, it just clicked right away. I know a few people. I have a client, and he's been looking for a new channel, just because he's in a third world country, and he's doing great. He's netting $20,000 a month American, but I mean, he's really got to squeeze, because in the sense of, we think about low price points. He's dealing with things that are like $15, $20, right? But so for him, pay per click is really expensive on Facebook and stuff, and he's just had struggle with that. But as soon as you said that, I realized 3 of his competitors and where they're at, and exactly. Anyways, it just clicked when you said that, because you're very right on that. I mean, you can expand into a bunch of other channels, and you should, but there's always an 80-20, right? So
and you start off where the majority of the audience is already at. And a lot of people talked about my dad saying, "Oh, you can sell ice to Eskimos," and it's like, if you're saying that, you obviously haven't been paying attention. Great market. It's already hard enough to sell people what they want already. It's even harder to convince them that they want or need something they haven't thought about. And so, you don't reinvent it. Gary Halbert would never try and sell ice to Eskimos. He'd sell them heaters. Right. And if you're fighting to get a piece of a much smaller pie when you're going to Facebook with something that goes to young people. And so forth. And, the key to doing like what you're talking about with Facebook is you have to expand the lifetime value of your clients, so that if you don't make money on that front end piece, you're at least just barely covering. This should stop in a second. You should just start being able to
just break even on the front end, or only lose a little bit of money, and then you want to know what your ROI is over kind of the first 30 days to 6 months that they're on your list.
Actually, you want to go even further than that. You just want to keep going, and it's always easier. I did a formula one time, and I put it into a spreadsheet to demonstrate it. And it was like, okay, here's, you get percentages that come in that, when you run your ad, and then you have your percentages that convert, and you drop off the percentages of people who buy your upsell, and the percentages of people who do this and that. And almost always, the biggest boost in your income will come from adding another product to your lineup. It'll be there before you can, So, yes, you can make a lot more money by tweaking that cart. You can make a lot more money by, but there are points, pressure points, or leverage. It's better to say leverage points, where small adjustments make much larger gains. Right. So, like in the last place you should be worried about things is the middle of your copy, unless a heat map or something is telling you that this is where you're dropping people. But you have in your market, the 2 leverage points are your hook or your headline and your offer. If outside of that copy, your leverage points, your best ones are back end products. It's not, that's where you make big changes. And the other thing is, the reason you're making them is you no longer have to pay to acquire that name.
Right. Because then you've got them, and it's free, especially, well, not quite free, but it's just way cheaper to resell someone who's already bought. So yeah, I totally get that. I mean, if you can just create more product and sell to the same people, then essentially your marketing costs are infinitesimal. Like they're just so small because it's just the cost of being like, hey, are you interested in this? And especially if you start getting into RFM analysis, then you're really marketing with a sniper rifle versus a shotgun or even a pistol. Like, yeah.
And it's just you're probably already playing for get response, and you're probably already covering the majority of those costs when it comes to reaching out to them, unless you're in direct mail. The majority of the time reaching out to your clients doesn't cost you any extra money to your monthly nut.
Right.
It is because you're already paying for that to capture the lead.
Yeah. All right. I want to get the intro done. That week, I already hit record, so I'm like, thank God, thank God I did that, because that was good. That was great. No, man, I'm just super pleased to have you here. I've been a longtime fan. Got good fast. I owe a lot of that to Gary. I really do, like the letter being free on the internet, the boron letters, his seminar tapes that I was able to torrent because I was broke at the time, like things like that. Don't worry, I lost the Bond letter book. I've bought that book 3 times. I've left it. I should have included this in my intro, but whatever, we'll edit. But I've left that book like on 3 different continents and just bought another one because I've been like, oh well, like I just got to get it again. Like and I already have the digital version. Like I love the Bond letters. That book is awesome. So I know a lot too.
It's my favorite book of all time.
Yeah, no kidding. So all right, let's do a couple seconds of silence. I'll go into the bio, and then I'll just say thank you for joining us, and then we'll go and we'll edit all that stuff we just went through in somewhere. So
okay,
cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host, as always. And if you've been following me for a while, you've definitely heard the name of the late, great marketing legend Gary Halbert mentioned again and again and again and again. Gary was considered by many as the greatest copywriter and marketing mind that has ever graced this earth. And today we are joined by his son, Bond Halbert. Bond, through his father, got one of the most in-depth marketing educations in history. He passed all his knowledge on to Bond like any father would to their son, who they want to carry on the legacy and prove this stuff is in the family genes. Bond has had massive success in his own right, selling millions of dollars of info products and guiding many businesses to success. His wisdom is sought out by some of the top marketers on the planet, as well as the numerous small businesses he has helped over the years. This is Bond, not James Bond, but the same son who was stuffing, stamping, and sealing direct mail envelopes when he was only 2 years old. The same son who trained copywriting and advertising starting at the ripe old age of 10. The same son who played guinea pig for all the lessons Gary taught his proteges or used in his timeless newsletters. Gary taught Bond everything he knew about business. He went to mastermind meetings and seminars like other kids went to baseball games. Gary took Bond to all kinds of high-level meetings, and trust me, he was the only kid in the room. One time, he even took Bond out of school to go to a brainstorming session with Jay Abraham and a few other buddies. And even when Gary went to Boron, Gary mailed Bond letters with marketing and life lessons. Those letters were eventually put into a now famous book titled The Boron Letters. This book is honestly one of my top marketing books of all time. If you don't have it, get it. I was just telling Bond before we hit record that I've lost that book 3 times and I just keep rebuying it. I have digital version. It's very dear to me. So it is such an honor, and I'm very excited to introduce you to him today. Bond, thank you for joining us. I am so grateful for your time. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You seem to know my history is almost as better than I do.
Well, that's the beauty of technology and of information marketing and just marketing in general. It's a really good way to share your story with the world, and through your own story and your own experiences, just affect thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives, as is the case with yourself and your father. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So, can you maybe I just kind of gave a whole lot of your background story, but for yourself, you probably, you were encouraged into it as a kid, but when did you first have your own business venture? Did you have a lemonade stand, or how did you, when were you trying to, grow your own wings and do your own flying tricks?
Well, I was always kind of interested. I paid very close attention to what my father was doing, and that's the reason he started training me early. Because I told him I was really, I was lucky and fortunate enough to see him, have to make money because my dad had an up and down kind of ride.
Right.
And because of that, I was interested. And so he started doing all those things to train me at an early age. And I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have a lemonade stand. Actually, my brother and we opened up a little casino because we knew there was more money in a casino. But what we did later was I actually, worked in the family business for a very long time. And then it came time I decided to go to college, much to my father's chagrin. And I went and got a degree in international business administration, which was a marketing degree, and a minor in economics. And then out of school, because I just continued and moved up from my part-time job into a full-time position at the Giorgio Armani Corporation. I was working at one of their boutiques here in Beverly Hills. And I was working, doing the 9 to 5 thing, and eventually, realized, and I started getting stressed out and over concerned about the things that were going on in the company. And, I just didn't understand, I had always kind of understood the value of, what different participants in business did. And since from my father's, education he gave me, I knew what really mattered in businesses, but school gave me school allowed me to understand the thinking of middle managers and presidents and people who work in the corporate world. And eventually I was like, this just is not for me. And I quit. I couldn't, to tell you the truth, I kind of had to leave because I was it just wasn't built in me. And then from that point, I started working with my father, and he said, well, hey, why don't we do this, this, and that? And I said, well, let's try this. And we started working together. And together, I developed an info product, and he helped figure out how to market it, which didn't take him very long at all. And once he saw that what we were doing was working, he said, let's go blow this puppy up, and we did. And then I built that company up and ran it, and we actually, that company itself made more money for my father than any other venture he had ever done.
What?
Yeah, and a lot of people. Yeah, this is actually probably one of the first times I've told people publicly, that it was finance. It was a financial product on doing stuff. But the important part of that was, and then later on, I wanted to start doing stuff on my own, and I broke away from working with my father. Now we still had this very close relationship. We spoke a couple of times every single day. And then I went and started working with my brother, and we started designing financial campaigns for other people. And we helped design some of the most successful campaigns that were out there and making good money. And at that point, I was actually making more money than my father. And I don't really. For a long time, I didn't share that with people because I didn't want anybody to think that I was trying to usurp him or say that that was better, because everything, and my dad would be quick to point this out, any success I have is, gets attributed to him anyway.
Right.
And it really is true. We had this deal when I was early on, and he said, look, he was a much better father to me than his father was to him. Mm-hmm. And that's just a generational thing. I'm not knocking my grandfather. Mm-hmm. And then I said, my job is to take what you teach me and become a better father than you, and then, so forth. And so I do try and take all the things that were great about my dad's, my relationship with my father, and not just imitate it or mimic it, but to add to that with my own kids. Mm-hmm. And so they get the boron letter lessons, but they also get updated stuff and even more philosophy. And I even write letters to my own children. But then so then after that, I was cruising along doing that, and then my father had passed away. And that was a big hole in my life and started to kind of send me into sort of a depression. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I had enough resources and money to not do anything for like a year or two. Yep. And that because a lot of great marketing comes from necessity. And, nothing motivates you like having children that need to eat.
Right, and nothing feels like success, because it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that is a real danger. I've been through that, and I know other people that have done that. They have success, they make a whack load of money, and then it's like, why? Like what? Like why work? Right, when you have other pressing things, and you have to. It really does kind of showcase how the mental game plays such a big part into business. And I've often said, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I always feel that business in a lot of ways is very Shakespearean, where people's businesses and them themselves as entrepreneurs, they fail in spite of their worst flaws, right? If they don't try to develop, very Shakespearean that way, because that's how all Shakespeare's characters, right? They all fell to their own demise. So, but anyway, sorry.
Well, that's okay. Well, what I did then was, and I still didn't end up having to go back because I just started coming out of the fog. What happened was one day I was sitting there thinking, okay, I'm kind of over the depression of losing my father, but something was missing in my life, and I realized it was I didn't get a chance to talk about marketing, and because my brain works like my father's, in which I get bored really fast. Now, I never stay bored because I'm always got some kind of thing that I want to go and check out and investigate. I'm very curious by nature, and I've always lived a more adventurous life than most of my friends and family. And, I was born with the name Bond. It kind of just instilled with me to think outside the box, Right. And I was born with the name Bond before people were giving their kids unique names.
Right.
So what I did then was I decided that one of the things I have to do is help secure my father's legacy and who he was, and kind of make sure the world knows not to forget what Gary Halbert brought to this industry, and to show a massive amount of respect for that and so forth. And so I went about doing that, and I've recently said, okay, I've done that to the point, and then I always said, being a Halbert gets you get your foot in or then having the name Halbert gets your foot in the door, but being a Halbert gets you invited back. And I realized, and so at that point, because it's, normally you'd say, okay, this is just somebody who's inherited his father's, materials or websites or something like that. But if you ask anybody who's spent any time with me, they're like, oh, darn, he really knows all this stuff.
Right.
And has this intricate, I had this understanding that was on a deeper level than all of my father's proteges. And they're all good. My dad's proteges are now the best copywriters in the world. But I can much more easily adapt his principles and everything, because I had heard these stories first and so often that I internalized why everything worked. I understood that, look, the key component of a free recorded message revealing something was not that just you're going to get something and capture their name, but it was the anonymity of that and the safety of it. I understood, my ability to go into the mind of your customer, your prospect, and understand what makes them tick or what they care about was a lot higher than most people in the, most of the other marketing experts. And so I then started on this in the back shadows, because I really didn't, I didn't want to show too much of what I was doing, because one, I didn't want to look like I was trying to stomp all over my father's legacy.
Right.
But two, I also, I don't want to sidetrack the story. I was actually, I grew up understanding what success can actually attract. I was in home when my father, actually my whole family went through a home invasion robbery as a kid, because my father was bragging about his success. So when I started making money, I didn't, I wasn't about to go out and buy a Porsche and start showing off everybody and say, look, here's what I got and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
And well, despite that, I was actually targeted to be kidnapped and killed by the Russian mafia.
What?
Yeah, it actually happened. I got this call from a detective.
What? Sorry, this is so... How old were you? What?
Oh, at this time, no, this is after my success, so I'm like 30 years old at this point. And what happened was I got a call from a detective, and he said he was working with the FBI, and he said, hey, are you Bond Halbert that works at, that has bank accounts at such and such bank? And I said, yes. And they said, well, we found this group of people, and I had read the stories about them because they'd just been recently busted. These guys were kidnapping people, holding them for ransom, and when their families would deliver the ransom, then they would just kill the victim and dump their bodies in a lake.
Wow.
And they said, with these, we just raided their cabin, and we found your info. And I was like, are you kidding me? And they're like, no. And the scary part was, after reading the stories in the press, I had realized that, at that time, my money wasn't tied up in investments like it is now. Right. And so they said, I noticed that, they could have gotten more money out of me than they were getting out of them. And so I don't know, what, it was just divine intervention or whatever. But that kind of hit me, and I was like, I'm just not one. I just even further decided that, I'm never going to be that guy out there. Yep. So while all these marketers are out there, faking it till they make it, yep. I'm out there hiding it. Yep. And, but like I said, so I took a lot of time, and what I would do is, people, my experience was people would, invite me to masterminds or conferences and stuff like that. And the reason I would go and help a lot of people is it was just good for me to start, it was kind of like, I don't know, having a talent that, you got to use, because, it's one of the things you like. It's one of the things you like to do. Right. So in the last 7 years or so, I've been helping a lot of copywriters who are already well-paid professional copywriters, show them stuff that my father was doing naturally, and show them how to do that and inject those things into their copy and take them to a different, I hate to say that, it sounds so cliche, but take them to a different level and show them how to improve what they're doing. So I like to take the people who have already been through really good marketing courses and maybe had a mentor for a little while and stuff like that. And I also did it with businesses too. I saved some businesses and help pump them up and do things like that. And I just, and so I'm now at the point where I'm going to start, probably putting my shingle out there a little more, as they say. But my reputation, as of the process of solidifying my father's legacy, and in so doing, and getting, having the people who would get near me started to understand that I really did have a lot of the Halbert magic. I'll never be the copywriter my father was, because my focus has always been the big idea and hooks and solutions. I say good marketing is always in really creative hooks, offers, and solutions. And I've been, fortunate enough, because of, and it's not like, I don't want to say it, I came out of the womb talking and, and doing things like that, and being a master persuader. It was, this has been 30 plus years. Imagine growing up next to Gary Halbert all the time, and everybody coming in and saying, hey, Gary, how would you market this? And I'm sitting in the background trying to guess, okay, Gary's going to say this and that. And eventually I became the best in the world at knowing what Gary would do.
Yeah. And just from the 10,000 hour principle alone, because exactly what you're talking about, the immersion that you had, it's one of those things. I'm fortunate. I have a martial arts background. I was fortunate enough to train with a lot of world champions and Olympic athletes. And the one thing that I always noticed is that when a lot of these people, when you hear of their success in that, you always, when you find out, and you see all the hard work that goes into it, you're like, oh, of course they're that good. Look at all the things that they've done. Of course they're that good. Look at the people they're surrounded with. Of course they're that good. Look at the hours and look at the dedication. So when you mention this stuff, of course you've come into your own, and of course you've got your own legacy you're leaving, because you've just got so many hours, and your network, your whole life is built around it. In fact, just for you, you're getting hours and experience and just picking up tips and tidbits around the dinner table while you're eating, let alone at your 9-to-5 job type thing. So, no,
I got it even further, more places. The one thing that I noticed about my father that it was true of me, which I don't see as much in the industry, is you'll see people who they only listen to somebody who's got this name, or this reputation, right? And often those people and those with that name and reputation, if you go and read the Gary Halbert letter, you're like, oh, this is where they got that.
Yes, right.
But my father and I would pick it up anywhere. It didn't, you could have 10, you could express 10 ideas to us and one of them only be good. Me and my father would go, oh, yeah, that's a great one, Yeah. And that really makes sense and that would work. Oh, no, that wouldn't work, or, that's overhyped or whatever it was. But it wasn't just from other marketers. It was from every aspect of life. We were talking about it yesterday. I was talking with one of my father's best proteges that, he was always going to movies and books, but you would find that the things that he had read about and experienced or did stuff in real life all the time would make it into his marketing. Because to be really entertaining and to be a fascinating person isn't about writing really well. It's about having something interesting to say. And if you want interesting things to say, you want to be an interesting person. And so, I have a lot of, people say, there's a lot. If you knew Gary Halbert, you have a Gary Halbert story. Most of the time, if you grew up with me, you also have a lot of Bond Halbert stories. Not all of them good.
That's all right, as long as they're talking about you, right? That's
well, but it was also interactive. Like, my father was, sent to Boron Federal Prison, and I did, I always thought it was funny. I said, it's a really strange father-son dynamic when you can turn to your kid and ask him to smuggle something into prison for you, and he says yes without batting an eye. But the thing is, I would say until I got married, I led a really fascinating life, or much more. I had all these wild stories. But even after that, I'm always, like I said, I get bored very easily. And if you find a marketer that's really can say interesting and is talented stuff, and they don't have a fascinating, interesting life, they're probably absorbing the fascinating and interesting things through movies and books and, even TV or whatever they read. But what I'm saying is, we'd hear a news story and it gets filed away into in part of our brain that says this might be useful later. I could hear a piece of copy on a radio ad, an infomercial, or a television show. I was watching a rerun of Breaking Bad the other day, and I heard this, I was watching this one segment, and I was like, oh, that's really good, and I could use this. I gave this one speech one time at John Carlton's boot camp, not boot camp, John Carlton's action seminar. And I started it with, I said, I'm going to give you shakabuku. That's the sudden spiritual kick to the head that alters your reality forever. And I credited. I got that from one of my favorite movies, Grosse Point Blank. And, so the thing that I'm saying is we pick it up everywhere. It's not just, in this course I learned this, or in this book I read that, and this manual and these copywriting experts told me this and that. We pick up stuff that we can use in marketing everywhere. And persuasion, that's one of those things, you really learn how to persuade from your parents, So if your mom goes into a store and to get what she wants, she, cries or screams or whatever, you usually pick up those habits. I learned how to persuade, and I learned how to work a room and talk to people and be who I am from my father, who had a massive toolbox of tricks.
Yes.
He had a massive bag of tricks for which he could pull out and say, okay, and it always, and oh, by the way, there's a tip for marketing. It always starts with looking them in the eye and knowing, okay, this is what you really care about. And so I'm going to tempt and tease you with that and give you what you want in exchange for what I want.
So can we dive into that a little bit? Because one of my favorite letters of all time is from the Boron letters, where he's talking about lists and list selection and how that's such an important part of it. And if you have a promotion that's dying and you want to give it life, one of the best and easiest, fastest ways to do that is to try a new list. So what you just said is really critical. I just did an interview as well. Another guest of ours, Ben Simpkin, he's helped his clients generate over $900 million. And he had said, like Abraham Lincoln, forgive me, I'm not sure if it was 6 or 7 hours, but I think he was like, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend 5 of them sharpening my axe. And he said, if I had 6 hours to plan a marketing campaign, I would spend 5 of them studying my prospect. So what you just said about being able to look someone in the eyes and know what they really care about, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how does someone get to know what their prospects are thinking?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. Do you want to? First, do you want to talk about why it's important, or do you want me to?
Well, no,
I'll give you a quick example, a real quick example of why it's important. Then I'll explain sort of how to do it. Okay, because explaining how to do it. I mean, I could give you, we could be on this for 4 hours. A lot of marketers use this example for USP, but I use it for the research part and understanding how people tick. when Domino's came out with their "We'll deliver your pizza in 30 minutes or less" campaign, what they did was they tapped into understanding that everybody who was ordering pizza was really sick and tired of not being able to know when it would come, because pizza parlors were run in such a way that if they ordered it, it could come an hour later or 15 minutes, and you couldn't plan a lunch break. It might come so late that you were starving and went and ate somewhere else. And so if you were planning a lunch party or dinner party or something like that, and it arrived, and you said, okay, I'm going to give it an hour to show up this time, and it arrived in 15 minutes, it was cold by the time anybody got a chance to eat, type of thing. So a lot of people didn't, so Domino's did a really good job. And the reason that campaign was so good, and the reason they came up with that great USP, was they clearly understood through research that these pizza lovers were absolutely, the key choice between which pizza parlor was who was going to deliver it, had a reliable delivery time. And that's what made that work. You could have rewritten that offer 20 different ways. You could have said, hey, we'll deliver it in half an hour, it's on us. You could have said it's under 30 minutes or it's free. You could say we'll get it to you there within 30 minutes, or you won't have to pay us a dime. It wouldn't make a difference how you worded that message.
Right.
It was that offer that really made it great, and that offer came from understanding the market. And if, let's suppose that they were in a market where everybody was delivering it exactly about a half an hour, then taste would have been a much more important factor.
Right, of course. Yeah, they didn't say it would be good. They just said it would be there and hot.
Exactly. And so what you want to do is you really want to understand what makes them tick. And there are some principle stuff I'll tell you about, and then I'll give you some straight up tactics. The principle stuff that you want to do is you need to get over yourself, and you need to understand, well, one is you need to understand that you are much like your prospects. So if you go through the funnel and you say, okay, I'm a pizza guy now, and so every day we're going to order a pizza for the family. And that's why you see like Mad Men and marketers. And when I was young, my father would do this too. He would come home from someplace he was meeting with people, and if they were selling kids' toys, he would say, here, Bond, here's a banana board skateboard, one of the first skateboards ever, try it out. And he'd watch and see, and then ask our feedback and stuff like that. And if it was something for himself, he would go through the process. But the idea is this: if you're thinking it, or you're feeling it, or you're experiencing it, so are all these other people. You are not alone. Okay, you're not so unique that, when you get irritated that the pizza didn't come on time, that they're not getting irritated that the pizza didn't come on time. So it comes in being absolutely true and understanding of yourself. The best marketers in the world have a raw honesty about their emotions and their feelings. One of the examples I like to use for that is a Rolex watch. The truth is nobody needs a Rolex watch, and I have two of them myself. I love them. But the point is, the person who's buying the Rolex watch is not buying it for a timepiece, especially since a quartz watch is more accurate, a G-Shock is more durable, and it's actually a very, most of them they produce a lot of them, a lot more than most people think they do. But the Rolex watch is often because somebody wants to let the whole world know that they made it. And there's a lot of other reasons why, but a lot of it is about, because I want to show it off, because I want to do things. And so then what you do is this is where like a third level of psychology comes in. You say, but this person doesn't want to admit that to himself. But the sharp marketer says this is the reason that they're doing it. But they're not going to admit it. So I'm not going to write an ad that says, get a Rolex to rub it in your friends' faces.
Right. Okay.
What I'm going to say is I'm going to describe, and I'm going to give you excuses to buy it so that you can tell your friends why you spent so much money on that Rolex. I'll say there's 400 man hours were put into the production of that. It's a timepiece that, yes, it costs money, but it's, if after a certain number of years, it's actually going to be worth more money than you paid for it. What I'm really doing is giving you excuses to tell your wife and your friends why you bought it. And then I'm going to paint pictures that fulfill that fantasy of being able to show people you make it. I'm going to say, when I first put on my Rolex, I started noticing I got better seated at better tables at restaurants. When I would cut business deals, people were less likely to try and undercut or ask me to, cut my rates. And these are the, and so the person who's in the prospect who's thinking about buying a Rolex is going, oh yeah, okay, yeah, and this is a good reason, and I can tell my wife that. And they don't have to consciously say to themselves, it's because I want to show people I've made it. Okay. And that's where a great marketer is really actually going to be get over themselves. They will admit things that, like my dad, one phrase that my dad always said that stuck in my head, and he was saying it tongue in cheek, but it's a really great example of this. Is he says, I just, it's not enough for me to be skinny. I just love it when my friends get fat, right? Because the truth is, he doesn't, he wants to be the best looking of his friends. Right. Now, nobody's going to say that even to themselves. They're not going to say, I just want to be, better looking than everyone else. Right. My friends and my brothers and stuff like that. And, but when you understand that that's really is the reality of it, you can actually start painting pictures that way and say, my friends are all amazed at how good looking I am now, or how much weight I've lost, and that girl who wouldn't look at me twice is now asking for my phone number. And, I get to say no because I have a better offer or whatever it is. So the first thing back to the piece of advice I'm giving you is first tune into your real true self. The more you can do that, the bigger advantage you will have. And it doesn't mean you have to be a cold, callous, jealous, manipulative person.
You have to be a realist about the reality of the situation and about your own feelings.
Yeah, and about how much you suck. I always tell, people say, oh, you're so, if they don't say I'm arrogant, but they'll say I'm confident. But I always say I'm not arrogant. I'm just very confident that everybody sucks as much as I do. And that's really what it is. It's about understanding that they all do. You are a very, very flawed human being. And so am I, and so is my neighbor, and so is everybody that you look up to, and everybody you look down on, and everybody that you feel is on your level. And so that's the first thing. And then once you really kind of are in that mindset and you're open to that kind of thinking, then what you want to do is, as best you can, put yourself into the shoes of that prospect. So the number one thing you need to do is shop the competition and shop yourself. You need to get, if you want to sell new telephones, you got to go buy some new telephones, and you need to play with them. You need to learn them. You need to learn what's the hard part about it, what's the bad part about it. And you first start with that. You first start with your raw experience. Okay, and understanding that. And then after that, you try and seek out what other people's experiences are, because your experience is not complete. I have a new phone that I do not program with speed dial numbers, and and I don't take use of all the features. That doesn't mean that those features aren't providing a benefit and emotional benefit to other buyers. So after that, and I like to, I don't know where the trick exactly came from, but I first heard it from Jay Abraham, so I like to always credit where I heard it from. And I kind of expanded it, which is, he said, just go onto like Amazon and look up the review of those phones, and then look at the ones that are positive and the ones that are negative. And then, this gives you language, and it lets you know into what these people are thinking. Now, ignore the obvious, these people are shilling and this guy got his employee to write the review. Right. But, try and find the ones that have a lot of emotion to them and stuff like that, and look at the really good and the really bad ones. You're going to really look at all of them and see what they really like and they don't like. And the example I like to use for that is a dog chucking stick. You know how people have those sticks where they put a tennis ball on the stick and they flick it and it goes 200 yards? Well, imagine you're going to a Yelp review and you see that, one guy says, oh, this thing's fantastic. I no longer feel guilty about not exercising my dog, and my vet told me that he'll live longer and he needs this and he needs that. And then you go and look at the negative review, and the negative reviews say, oh, this thing's, I hate it because it was green, and I'm partially colorblind, and I dropped it in where I was out in the woods, and it was, took me 30 minutes to find it. Or this thing was cheap plastic and it broke. Well, then you solve that problem. Because remember I said it's about hooks, offers, and solutions.
Right.
And you say, with our ball chucker, you'll never feel guilty again. With the flick of a wrist, you'll be able to give your dog all the exercise he needs, no matter how tired you've been at work. Helping your best friend live longer and healthier, happier life. And, it's not made out of the cheap plastic that will break on you. It's a higher polymer, and it's painted, and it's painted a bright color. They even painted a bright color to make sure it's always easy to find. And so, the copy practically writes itself. Now, what I would add to that is, you use Yelp reviews for services. Use Amazon reviews for products, book reviews, and look at the reviews for competition. You have to be an investigator. You have to be a person who goes out there and is, takes, like I took that piece of advice that I had heard from Jay Abraham. And I went and started, okay, well, this is a service. Where can I go for that? Okay, I can go to Yelp. And if I don't find it there, I'll go here. So somebody was, like when you're creating your avatar, what they say is the ideal picture of your customers. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, what if I don't have a list and I can't tell how old they are and, what their backgrounds are or anything like that? What I can do is I can go to Alexa.com and I can look up the demographic profile of my competitors, right? And that'll start to build it. So, but these aren't things that I was taught. These are things that my curiosity and my detective work. My dad, I think he even mentioned it in the Boron letters. You're a detective. And you're learning about people, and you're learning where they are. You're learning what they care about. You're learning how much they're willing to spend for things. You're learning, trying to understand the emotional benefits of it. And right now, I'm putting together a checklist that has a list of all these questions that kind of seek out what you need to seek out the answers to find out what makes these people tick and what it is that gets them. So, and it's not just, did you go to Yelp and check out the reviews? It's like, what's the emotional benefit these people are buying? If they're buying, IRS or debt relief, they're buying peace of mind and the ability to sleep at night. If they're, if you're buying the dog ball chucker, you're buying an easy, you're buying your way out of exercise and you're buying your way out of guilt over raising your dog properly and giving him the exercise that he needs, but anyway, you create yourself a good checklist for that kind of thing. Eventually you'll be able to get it from me. But, you create yourself like a checklist like that and start filling in the blanks. And, start with creating your avatar. And, I know people do this, but I was listening to Lori Morgan talking about how she will find, once she's figured out the demographics and everything, she will find a picture of somebody in Google Images that matches that description, and that she'll put it up on a window and write her copy to that person, right? And it's a great tip. Because, I do that but I just do it, I've done it before, always in my mind. When I start off to write something, I'm thinking, okay, the person in my life most likely to buy this is my wife or my mother or my brother or my friend or whatever it is. And I will imagine that person and I will start writing to them,
I love that. That's a great activity because I find that a common mistake a lot of people make is they want to have everyone be their customer. They're afraid of turning business away, so they avoid being so decisive, and everything. But just from what you're saying, that's the magic bullet, is to really have a target like that and to have done the research to know that, all right, that's this is my demographic, this is the person, this is their psychographics, and there's only 100,000 of them, or they're what I mean? But you've got an idea of the size of the market, of what people's pain points are. I love the point about checking out the reviews, and especially the differentiation between why you would use Amazon or Yelp. I'd never heard anyone say that before. I've had lots of people say, go read the reviews, and especially the negative reviews of similar products to what you have or the closest that you can find, just to get a feel for the right direction and the language and the syntax and the pain points, but never a differentiation like that from products off Amazon and services from Yelp. So that's really key. And I just love how you bring it down to that one individual. A great exercise that I've done with some of my clients in their business as a business activity is the power of one exercise, where you've got your one avatar, but you treat them like, what if, because we talked about this again before we hit record, about lifetime customer value, and that once you've got someone on your list, once you've established a buyer-seller relationship with them, friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for life, you want to create in them a friend for life, where the relationship is they're your friend to buy this type of knowledge from you. And so that becomes a lifetime customer value, and building that out on the back end. And anyways, it's the tangent that so sorry, but that
okay.
Power of one, where you just have that one person that you're writing to and building your business that way, because then it's just such a better, like building a real business. It's not this flash in the pan, like, oh, I got 20 sales for $1,000 in like a week. I made 20 grand, and like going off and celebrating, where that's not a business, right? You come out with a product, that's splash, and you're gone. What you're talking about is like, you've got a real person that you're going to befriend, and you're going to get inside their head, and you're going to try to speak to them on a one-on-one level through your marketing, which is, I think that's kind of the name of the game, isn't it?
Oh, not only that, what I would do is take what Lori is doing a step further and try and, if you've got a lot of friends, actually put a picture of a real friend, because when you're writing copy, you want it to be really personal, one-on-one, and you want to talk to them the way that you would talk to a friend. That's what causing the bond. That's how you create the bond between the two of you. You don't, would you go to your friend and say, would you like to double your business overnight? You would say no, because you would say, hey, I know that you're in this business, and I got something really cool to tell you about. There's the difference there, and it seems subtle, but it is massive, because they feel like, okay, you're talking to me on my level, you're not going to lose me, and I like what you say, and you obviously know me and you understand me, and you're using real common language, because you wouldn't write to your mother that way that a lot of the schlocky or even corporate type of copywriters do.
Right.
And if if you can, imagine that you're writing that letter to a close person, a friend or a loved one, so that, you don't do that. When I went through college, as I said, and, I completely I had to learn how to write for professors in the silly, stupid way that they write in college, which is to state a premise, give 3 to 5 arguments and then sum it all up again. Well, nobody's entertained by that. You're learning to write for people who are just, reports for companies that want to disseminate information to a large group of people who are forced to read it.
Right.
That's a very key, that they're forced to read it.
Yes.
And so, and what they'll also do is, they teach you to use a thesaurus to find $5 words, where I use a thesaurus to find a more simple word. Or to use it, to find an alternate word so I'm not being repetitive. And so, that's another trick I teach people is, you use a tech term every once in a while to prove your expertise, but you immediately, without even ending that sentence, you immediately explain it in a way that makes the prospect go, he's not only an expert, but he tells me the way that I understand it. You can go, the reason Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye the Science Guy are popular with the people who follow them is he's not losing them. He's not sounding like a professor with a PhD in a university, and they make them feel safe and comfortable that I'm going to learn this from him. And he's put it in a way that I'm not going to get lost, and I'm not going to feel stupid, and and people bond with that. So yes, it's very much about being a friend to your prospect, and and as a friend, would you sell them something crappy? Would you give them a bad deal? Would you do all that? So again, it's not about being a callous, cold, calculating hustler. Yeah. It's about being a friend. And the only difference is you're doing it in a way so that you're friends to the masses, but you can't really tell it. You're still talking to them. One conversation, it's me to you. It's just that letter is going out to 100,000 people.
Right. I love that. No, that's such great wisdom, such great tips, and it's really, it's the principle-based thing that won't change regardless of what happens with technology, because it's people that buy products, and one of the things that I've heard a lot of people kind of gripe about, at least in the info marketing circle or info marketing industry, is that they end up being their brand instead of having some sort of transferable entity. But part of it is because it's such an easy way to build that rapport, because people buy from other people, right? Even when most people, if they get their cell phone from somewhere, they want to go back to talk to the person they bought it from, because they've got that connection, that bond, that rapport, that one-on-one relationship. So I think it just hits on a really critical point that we all kind of need to think about, because there's ways that we could all be giving our clients and customers more one-on-one individualized attention, but especially with tools today like autoresponders, which are phenomenal, being able to do that in an automated fashion, and then obviously trying to set it up in a way that's evergreen so we can get results over time to tweak and improve it as time passes, versus rushing to get a Black Friday sale out the door and putting all this time and energy. I'm kind of maybe you can tell me if I'm right or wrong in this. I try to stay away from special promotions like that, only for the sake of, if you don't have like an evergreen core marketing funnel, sales process, onboarding process, back-end offer, do you know what I mean? Like if you don't have that core trunk of your business in place, I feel like if you're going to spend time to work on a promotion for Black Friday, you're better off to just build that evergreen promotion that is the foundation of what your business will stand on, versus just do the one and done thing. Because the one and done thing, the odds that you're going to get enough feedback to really tweak and improve it, for a lot of people is slim to none, because they don't have big enough lists. And then even then, like, it's done, you have to work on something else again. Now, would you agree with that? Like,
I would agree. Well, I think there are no absolutes in marketing, so there might be something for which, for example, they talk about mailing, how often should you mail? And you want to in the beginning, mail so that you're definitely not forgettable, and then mail and try and create, when you have something interesting to say. But nobody wants to hear from their plumber once a week, right?
Right.
So there are no absolutes, but I agree with that very, very much, to the fact that, and where that starts is at the beginning when you plan it out. A lot of people, I put the boring letters on Kindle, right? And added my updates to it. And when I started doing that, I knew that most people were putting out a book, and the book would get a lot of sales, and the sales would slowly trickle off, and eventually the book would be forgotten, right? Unless you happen to create the classic masterpiece that people rave about for 30 years. Well, I didn't want that situation at all, and so I tried to create a promotional system that made people buy the book ongoing, evergreen. I was creating it designed for that. And so while everybody else wants to do is they want to create a number one bestseller so they can go tell everybody I'm a number one bestseller. And of course they're offering a free book or $1 book, and they're getting just to get that number one and a snapshot of that. What I did was a little different. I went and this is another tip that I'll give you for marketing. In all of business, you are marketing to everyone. You are marketing to your assistant to do a good job. You are marketing to the company, to the guy who you want to cut a deal with to mail to his customers and let him mail to yours. You are marketing to everybody. Marketing is every human interaction where you want to get something out of it. Is marketing, period. And that's why my dad had this level of understanding that he kind of instilled on me that I see a lot of people don't get. They don't understand that. So I was sitting there thinking, okay, well, how could I get Amazon to make sure that my book is always next to these classic evergreen, always selling books? And so what I did was a little different. I said, what would Amazon, if I was in charge of Amazon, what would make the difference in between why I would recommend Bond's book and put it next to these? So I said, obviously the first thing I want to do is see that the people are buying that book are also buying that book. And I tested this idea out. The very first thing I did was, I also knew that I wanted it to be a number one bestseller. Right. And I also wanted it to be something, if I was Amazon, I wouldn't care about your $1 or your free book. Right. I want to make money. Right. So I never discounted or put my book into the Kindle lending program. And I kept it at the $9 that they, that's their ideal sweet spot that they kind of push you into. I don't want to go into it, but if you pay more than if you charge more than $9, you don't start getting more money until you get up to like 25 or something. But so I know that Amazon's going to care about that, and I knew that they would want a lot of organic, good reviews, and they would want to see that it was number one for a good, had a good debut. So I planned my marketing strategies to promote that book, not to be okay. We're going to do this on this date on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we're going to do this, and on Thursday we're going to do this. I set them up so that I could fire one off whenever the ranking slipped from number one to number two. So that way I could keep it number one for longer, because I wanted to be able to say I've been number one for X number of weeks, right? And then what I did was I went and I collected the names of all the people buying my book, and also because you're usually promoting from your own list and stuff. And I did these other tricks, like I would say, okay, we're going to throw this webinar that's interesting to people who bought this book. And if you show your receipt for this book, I will let you in, right? And so you sent me your receipt, and that way I had your name and address, right? Or your email address, right?
Right.
And then what I would do is say, okay, after that, what you want to now do is I would throw the replay for that after the book slipped to number two again, because people would buy the book just to get into the webinar. And then what I did was I said, okay, everybody, I'm going to give this other great webinar, and if you want to get into it, all you have to do is show a picture on social media holding up my book and tagging my name or the boron letters down below. And then because you tag your name, I'll put you right into the list and you can get into the webinar. And I see a lot of people doing that now, but I don't think I pioneered it. I had the thought on my own, but I don't think I'm the first. And what happened was, and I knew this. I knew that if you're into copywriting and you're on social media, you have other people on social media that are into copywriting too. And when they wake up and they see a bunch of their friends holding up this book with big grins on their face, then they're going to feel that social pressure to want to, to not miss out on this. And they're going to go buy it. Just like there are a lot of people who watch the Super Bowl who don't care about football because everybody's going to be talking about it on Monday. So that shot it up. And then when I got these names, I told them to go buy another book. I told them to go buy John Carlton's book. And so now every time, and John Carlton, he even called me and he said, how did you get Amazon to send the people who buy my book an email promoting your book? They didn't just put it next to people who bought this also bought that.
That's awesome.
They actually promoted it.
That's
and
awesome.
So I said, hey, that really worked. And this is another tip. Marketing is about experimenting and trying this and that. And then when something works, you kind of figure out why it worked and try and replicate it. So the next thing I did is I said, I want to cement my dad's legacy with all of the top legends, not even just like guys like Dan Kennedy. I want his name next to Robert Collier and Claude Hopkins. Yeah, I want I want the all-time, the going on legends. So what I did was I wrote an email to the same list of buyers, and I said, I called it the Holy Trinity of Copywriting Books. And so that was it was such a salacious headline that spoke right to what they cared about, that I got a 51% open rate on a massive list that was never scrubbed or anything, right?
That's awesome.
And so they go in there and get it. And in there, I recommend the boron letters, but I pointed out, and this is again, back to being friends. I shared with them where they can go get free versions, but I said, I like these Kindle versions, and this is why I like this one and that one. And we were also helping the Robert Collier family because I wrote the description for theirs in Amazon, and my brother wrote the foreword for the newest version of that, and that one had several versions, right? Mm-hmm. And we told them about scientific advertising in the Robert Collier letter book, so I'm recommending great books. And this is a win-win-win-win-win situation.
Oh, yeah.
And now if you go look up scientific advertising or these other books, you'll also see people who bought the boron letters. And on top of that, if they're buying the print version, they'll say, if you buy this extra book, you won't have to pay for shipping. So instead of paying, and so these people are looking for another book to buy, and they're thinking about copywriting, and they're thinking about marketing, and the obvious choice is right in front of their face. Yeah. And so I successfully tied my father's book Well, it's our book now because I updated it. But I successfully tied the boring letters to these classic marketing books. And the whole thing was because I started out thinking about a long run program. I didn't start off thinking about, I'm going to make a bunch of money and then, in 2 months. Yeah. As a result of that, I published that book, I don't know how long, like 18 months, maybe 2 years ago, or I'm not sure the exact date. I got the biggest checks from that book last month, right? It's slowly increased and it's funny because a lot of times people, they're not testing things. So, one of the things I did recently, and this wasn't on purpose, well, it wasn't manipulative, but I knew it might be a side effect. My dad's birthday was coming up, and I thought, we always try and commemorate this and do something special. And I always wanted a smaller version of the boron letters. A big version of the boron letters is better for writing notes in, right? But I always wanted a smaller version because, like my father, I collected day bags and backpacks, and I had some smaller ones that the boron letters just didn't fit in. And so, but it was not worth doing to print it once. And I was thinking, what? Here's an idea. I had the whole book. I reformatted the book and resized it in what I call the travel edition, right? And my dad had all these guys, including me, that he would pal around with, and he called them road dogs. So I created the Boron Letters Road Dog Edition, which was exactly the same book, just resized for more of a travel thing, and I had only 100 of them printed. Okay, and the point of this was I would let his hardcore fans buy up the first batch, and this last batches I was saving to give away to people who've been very supportive of our family and very kind to us, and that they were rewards for being wonderful people. And I found the corporate seal for the Gary Halbert letter. So I took these and I said, I numbered and signed and sealed every one of these copies to certify that this was these are 1 out of 100. And I said, you can only get this for a week during, right around his birthday. And you can't, after that, it's all gone because I don't want it to compete with the ranking of the larger size version.
Right.
Well, you know what people were going to do when they got that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're going to talk about it, to tell their friends. They're going to share it on social media. They're going to read it. They're going to.
And so, everybody, all of a sudden, I'm seeing people sticking the book up on social media and showing the autograph and showing the seal. Very few of them actually showed the front cover.
Right.
Because this is a point of pride. Hey, and the ones that I'm sending it to, and they really are gifts. I'm not sending it out based on this guy's got the biggest name and the biggest audience. This really is a win-win-win-win situation, and you want to create those. And so because of that, all the sales of the Boron Letters, the regular edition, started just going up. Yep. And because again, it was the social cloud, it was the proof in it, and I was really, the main goal of that was to get myself a travel size version of the Boron Letters, and also to give these guys, because I like having books, I just prefer that. But it was to reward these people also for being, hardcore fans. And so I let only the hardcore fans purchase the books, right? So I didn't mail it 2 or 3 times and say, hey, get these before they last running out. I said, I sent out one announcement. I Facebooked one announcement and let those people who bought it. And then the rest are for gifts. And so if you get a Boron Letters in the mail, it is something, that travel edition, it is something special. And it's something that won't come around and, maybe ever again. But if I do ever do it again, it'll only be around my dad's birthday. But again, it's because I'm treating my buyers like true friends, not fake friends or anything like that. And, if you've got one of those, and I sent you one of those, especially if I sent you one out of the blue, and that this is not some ploy. In fact, when I sent out the gift ones, the headline of the letter, and it was a very personalized letter I'd sent to people, was, "This is not part of a Pip My Book program. In fact, you can't get these anymore." But they still Facebooked them and showed them around, and was all free advertising for me. But again, start planning out your promotions for the long run. If you're going to get up and plan a business, you're going to plan a promotion, and you have a chance to plan something that will be hot for a week. Here's another example. I don't do anything based on news stories. Because the news story is going to fade.
Yeah. That was a strategy someone gave to me a long time ago for like SEO. Like, oh, you just take a look at what the main headline is on your local newspaper. This is when I had a brick and mortar local business, and you make your own blog article about, like you basically become like your own opinion on what's happening in the city type thing. And for SEO stuff, but it's so flash in the pan. Yeah,
if you tie your book to Trump right now, he's the hot guy in the news, and this will probably get dated 5 years from now as people listen to it.
People like, who?
But if you tie it to Trump, it's going to get some attention for the next few weeks, right?
Yeah.
And even if it lasts a long time, I like to say that the classic example of that is how hot of a topic Sarah Palin was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but imagine trying to make something out of that now. It's trying to get traction out of it. So, but the point is, if I'm going to put in 20, 40 hours or whatever into developing a campaign or a marketing program, you can put 20 or 40 hours into, and by the way, you'll put 20 or 40 hours in, you'll test it and it'll bomb, or 20 or 40 hours and you'll test it and it works. And every time one is a super massive success, it is a shock to the person who created it. Every single time. Nobody sets out to create a viral video and it goes viral.
Mm-hmm.
They set out to try 10 videos hoping one will go viral.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very sure that Frank Kern was totally blown away by the success of Mass Control.
Yeah.
My dad was very blown away by the success of his newsletter.
Yeah.
We all get that way. So, but if you're going to put 20 or 40 hours into testing something, to put 20 or 40 hours into testing something that will last a long time, because you're doing that anyway. Who wants to spend 20 or 40 hours and it worked and we're great for a week?
Yeah, and now and it was a great Christmas promotion, but now we got to wait a whole year before you can run it again. So I'm so glad you spoke. You were very articulate on that case, because it's something that I see happen a lot, and and it's just heartbreaking because people have the best intentions. They're like, oh, Valentine's Day is coming, I should do something for Valentine's Day, but their businesses, they're in such feast or famine mode. It's like no. You want that 17-year running promotion. When I was John Assaraf's senior marketing director, we did an evergreen marketing campaign that it's over a year now, and I still get ads for that every single day I'm on Facebook. And when I left over a year ago, we were doing $100,000 a week with that, spending $4,500 a day on online pay-per-click marketing. And that's an evergreen campaign. Like, forget the Valentine's Day, forget Christmas holiday, unless you're a brick and mortar business that you really need that and depend on that. At the same time, I would look at finding some way that you can get outside of your local geography. I mean, that's what a franchise is essentially. A franchise is a marketing headquarters, and then everyone gets an operations manual for how to run that office, how to run that McDonald's location, and then they just peel and stick the phone numbers and addresses off the marketing that works and roll it nationwide. So even if you're a brick and mortar local business, you should still have the mentality and the foresight to be like, I want to plan something that just works when I put it in front of someone who's my ideal prospect.
Yeah, and if it's brick and mortar, you want to plan a campaign that will work if you open up another branch.
Yeah.
And I do believe you should throw Christmas promotions and so forth. You should create a list of all the holidays that will be a good excuse to create promotions. The other thing I do that's a little different from what a lot of people do is most people create a product and then they slowly start discounting it and then use it as a freemium. Right? I don't do that because you know what? Halbert products are worth a lot more than that. We're like the Rolls Royce. You don't get Rolls Royces cheaper, next year. And what we do is for our sense of urgency, we literally prove to people that, buy it now and the price is going up, and we keep our word. Yeah. And so, and again, would you recommend to a friend something that they would buy that you're going to cut the price in half next week?
Right.
No, you wouldn't do that to a friend.
That's
and
right.
you want those people going, oh, like we just wrapped up the Halbertology program, and we actually had no idea how great it was going to be. We're raising the price on it. Mm-hmm. And when we raise the price, everybody who got into it, what are they going to do? They're going to say, "Oh man, I got in at this price because I was one of the founding members of it." And they're going to be a free advertiser for us. And because you don't turn around and go, oh man, this thing was great. I bought it for $5,000 and now you can get it for $2,000. They don't do that because people feel like that's saying, hey, look, I was dumb enough to buy it at the higher price.
And your training and discounting is terrible because you train people to wait. I mean, that's the most common thing. You're at the grocery store or something. Oh, I'll wait till they're on sale, and you can't do that. And a lot of the people listening to this call want to be, like you said, in the Rolls Royce business, right? And you can't be doing that at all. I'm so glad, Bond, do you want to just like move in and be my roommate?
My wife might not like that.
Damn it. We got to go on a boys trip sometime. Like, seriously, I could, man.
Yeah, but it's, even they talk about 5 email sequences, right? If you start running the 5 email sequences, in fact, you don't even have to start running them. Everybody else has trained you to expect that last reminder. Every time somebody says, this is your last moment to get in, I'm like, no, it's not. It's going to be 3 more emails, right? But you train your list and you train the whole world that that's not the case. For example, the people who, they had the Boron Letters opportunity to buy the Road Dogg edition. If they're sitting around going, oh, man, there are people who will email me and they say, I saw that and I was bummed that I didn't get a chance to jump on that, right? And then, do you think that they're going to pay more or less attention the next time I send an email about something? They're going to pay more attention to, okay, wait a minute, I might have to decide to buy this right now. These guys really do limit their stuff. They really do raise their prices. They really, they're honest. They mean what they say, and it's not just hype. When I tell somebody attend live because I've got bad luck with recording, guess what? It's true. I got bad luck with recordings. and the more experience they have with me, the more honest they know that I am. Which, brings me to another last tip that I want to give, which is you want to be genuine more now than ever, because reputation is so, before, in the old days of print media and when there wasn't the internet, people saw an ad for something, and if they saw the ad run day after day after day or week after week after week, they'd say, okay, well, I can wait till the next time they run this ad. And then if they didn't get used to that, they didn't see it. But you could write and say stuff and mess these people up and not give them what they really wanted and ordered. And there was like very little ramifications for it. Yes. But I've always believed in what I call the theory of business karma, which is these things come back to you. Me promoting John Carlton's book without him asking me and sending him sales came back to me in spades, right? But being genuine, when people write about me, they don't write, oh, here's this guy just trying to cash in on his dad's fame. And they don't, because, I'm on your podcast. I'm not pitching you my products and just selling you my services and things like that. I'm giving you tips. I'm giving you what your audience wants to hear. I'm giving you what you're asking me for. And that's going to come back to me because, people will turn around and say, that was great. That was cool. You did this and that. And, regardless, and I'm not trying to get that buck today. I'm not scrambling for it. And there's nothing wrong with it. You got to ask for the sale and you got to make money. We're all adults here and you got to do business. But there's good karma in marketing, and the more, and the reputation online and what you can do, what people read about you and hear about you and all that stuff is, so prolific. It's spread out there so much that, I think it was Craig Clemens that coined the phrase, or at least I heard the phrase first from, but I'd already known the concept, which is you want to pass that Google test. And, when people, because, you start selling stuff for $25,000 or something, people are going to Google your name. I'm not spending $25,000 without somebody without Googling their name and finding out things about them. And it's so easy, first of all, you're going to get trolls anyway, right?
The more attention you get, the more haters you get. So
yeah, I always tell people who talk about trolls, I'm like, don't sweat it. Go look at Mother Teresa's Amazon book. It's got trolls. It's got trolls of people giving it 1-star reviews, and she's this is a woman who risked her life.
Yeah, no, it's true. Was it? They say friends come and go, but enemies accumulate.
Yeah, but so you're going to get that anyway. And it's not a reason to stop doing business and everything. But you want to be genuine. You want to provide. You want to be fair, and you want to be. I see all these people worrying about Another example is I see people always worrying about refunds. Nobody likes to issue refunds. Nobody does. And whenever you run a campaign, you'll see there will be some guy who's, in some Eastern European country, and he's, bought your stuffs and returned it and put it on some torrent site or something. And then, but the fact of the matter is, the guys who turned around and said, okay, I'm going to give you 6 months to return it, did better than the people who gave a month. And the people who did a year did even better. And it's for a lot of reasons. One is people kind of forget that, hey, I bought this thing 6 months ago and I could probably return it. It's not on their credit card statements or anything else. And, it feels kind of strange to pick something up and return it after having it for 6 months and so forth. But the security in knowing that you've got 6 months to return it. When I shop for stuff and I'm not so sure if I want it, and I'll ask what their return policy is, I rarely ever return anything, right? I just don't do it. But the knowledge that I have a lot of time to do it, lowers my resistance and lowers my guard and makes it easier to make that decision to purchase. And if somebody says you've only got a week to return this, I'll sit there and say, well, if I've only got a week, maybe I'll try and buy it another time when I've got a week to be sure I'm going to test it and see it, check out how it works. So, but the guys who first tried that, whether they were doing it as a very manipulative thing and understanding human psychology and the sales process and to raise their sales, they may have been doing it for that reason. But the guys who were doing it just to be better people were rewarded for it. And, and you get paid, I believe things come back to you, and especially with this interconnected world we live in nowadays, So.
No, totally. Sorry, no.
No, I was just saying, be good. Go out there and do good in the world, and be right by people. Stand up for yourself and be fair and everything. But for every person that is sending you a refund is you've got many more buyers just because you offered that refund rate.
Oh yeah, and it's something. One of the tenets that your father said before. If you give a stronger guarantee, or a full money back guarantee, stronger guarantee, you can triple your sales, but you'll double your refunds. And it's at the end, you're in the arithmetic game. And that's really what it is. It cost me this much money, and I made this much in sales, and this is my net profit, and plus minus equals. Like, it's nothing that's overly complicated. And when your ego gets involved and when you get married to products versus the markets, and like you said, helping people, building relationships with people, that's when you really start to go astray. And I think that really hits on a key, like a fundamental mistake a lot of people make, where they're coming to business from their perspective and what they want to get. I want to earn this much money, and it's me, like I, all this. But even when you talked about what you're doing with the books about sending people these gifts, it's just really being genuine about being good to others and making a difference in this world and providing a real value to the community that is generating, all this word of mouth buzz, right? All this, the social, getting you on the social graph and getting all this extra attention, all these fringe benefits. And that's really the world we live in now, where you can't just, rip people off and sell snake oil because we're way too connected. Now with the internet, the world has a central nervous system. I can pick up my phone and FaceTime one of my friends in Japan real time, and it's like I just opened a portal in my room and I can see them and talk face to face. And even if we talked about this 10 years ago, people would have thought that would have been magic. So I think, Bond, I've loved this interview so much because you've really hit on fundamental principles that are rooted in things that are time tested and true, that have worked years and years and years. You've given a lot of really clear direction, and I think we spent a lot of time on this call talking about some of the most fundamental things in business, about having a long-term perspective and not just focusing on the immediate sale, but developing real relationships with people and having a long-term perspective in that, and also talk about the market research, about why it's important, the conversations get in people's head, how to talk to them and bring the pain points out, but not in a direct way that will frighten or upset people, but in a way that actually builds rapport for and helps you get into that flow. And when you're you're in flow, you're vibing with them. So this has been immensely valuable. I wish I could keep you here all day, my friend. But I know that your time's valuable, and I want to respect that. So in wrapping up, what are you working on now? What are you excited about? If anyone here is as enthralled as I am and really wants to get engaged, first of all, we know they've got to go get a copy of the Boron Letters. That, honestly, for whatever it is, the $10, the $20, the $30, just fucking get it. Like, honestly, like, I'm sorry, but just get it. It's a fundamental book for your library. You really need to get the Boron Letters. You've also got the Gary Halbert Letter All-Star audio series, which is going on, where you've got all these titans of marketing, the like serious heavy hitter legends with long-standing track records, reading all these famous letters from the years and years of monthly newsletters that your father wrote. And then, so that's the Gary Halbert Letter All-Star audio series. And then there's also Halbertology, HALBERTOLOGY.com. And that, is that kind of your main thing now? Like, what are you excited about? What do you focus on? What do you want to tell everyone about?
I got a lot of stuff going on in the pipeline right now. I'm starting to come out and show people and take people who are copywriters and take finished courses and stuff. And I'm really, again, I don't have to be cliche, but I take them to the next level. But the one thing that I'm super, super proud about, you've kind of touched on, first of all, the Gary Halbert Letter All-Star audio series is what really made me happy, because we reached into our Rolodex and we started using the reputation of our family and stuff, and we contacted these great marketers, and what they came back and provided to us was so incredible, because they didn't just read the Gary Halbert Letter. They added this commentaries that were so fantastic.
So fantastic.
I mean, they had the varying degrees to how much they put into it, depending on who they were and stuff. But when you hear Dan Kennedy and Gary Benzavinga, that was one of our real big pride points. Was he came out of retirement and did that for us.
Yeah.
And
that's my favorite one. That's my favorite. He's reading my favorite letter. Sorry, but he's reading my favorite letter, and he's my favorite copywriting guru. And it's just.
Well,
yeah.
You remember when I talk about your marketing to everybody? I wanted Gary Benzavinga so bad and I wrote to him and I said, listen, I really, really want you to do this so much that I have reserved his most popular letter for you. And he wrote back and he said, "How can I turn that down?"
Like, gotcha.
And when you listen to his commentary, you're like, man, awesome. That's why this guy is head and shoulders above everybody. Oh, yeah. And then Kennedy did that, and then recently in the newest version, the part 3 that we did, we got Clayton Makepeace, and Clayton Makepeace is, Benzavinga is retired, and Clayton Makepeace, he is literally the guy that if I could, my kids were going into copy and they wanted to learn from somebody, and I could choose anybody in the world, it would be him. I mean, the guy is just, actually, you might have to edit that out. I don't want to offend a lot of friends, but he's just so amazing, and he reminds me so much of my dad as being a consummate professional that's just so into the copy and into the writing that he doesn't want to take a year off like the rest of us or anything like that. But he's just an amazing guy. But these guys, when we did that, what happened was a quick story was. Well, I don't want to even take the time to tell the quick story, but what happened was I started getting these recordings back from these All-Stars, and it literally started raising. I get goosebumps on my arms as I'm hearing Joe Sugarman read a Gary Halbert letter and Gary Benzavinga. And I mean, I found myself like, okay, wait a minute, I got this recording. I'm not just going to listen to it. I'm going to wait till I'm in this mood, and I got everybody quiet, and I'm like all set up. I mean, it was like setting up a ritual to say, okay, the way that you set up to get popcorn to watch your favorite movie and shut off all the phones type of thing. And that's the first time I've ever done that. I grew up in this business. I grew up flying around the country and attending seminars and stuff like that. It was the first time a product had ever excited me. And, inspired by that, my brother and a guy named Mark McCrae started getting together because we were going to venture into ClickBank area. And they said, hey, why don't we do something a little more than just sell us a few Gary Halbert products? Why don't we add these live webinar components? And they said, okay. And they said, Bond, what we want you to do is start inviting people to do that. And so I said, okay. And I invited this person. They said yes. Invited that person. I just brought in, we created literally a dream team of marketers that we wanted to learn from, that are the pinnacle top of their fields and the best copywriters and all that. And the only reason I stopped inviting was because we got it full, right? I mean, we just had this full schedule. And when we finished it, these guys, everybody on the team, they're like, man, this is the best marketing program I've ever seen. And it's part of my new philosophy of, I'm going to create stuff that is great forever, that's going to have value for just the longest periods of time, and is worth way more than the price of the thing. And, we're like, okay, we got to raise the price on this, and we are going to raise the price on it. And it wasn't part of the strategy to raise the price. It was like, wait a minute, you are giving away way too much for too little. And to tell you the truth, the All-Star audio series is the exact same thing. That is the best copywriting product I have ever seen put out. It's not just the Gary Halbert letters.
It's Gary Halbert letters read by legendary titans who they're reading the Gary Halbert letter. They want to, it's their time to shine. So
they're telling you this is what this meant to me, and this is how I adapted this, and this is an example of how I use this principle in my business. And if you've read the Gary Halbert letter, you start going, oh wow, I didn't even think about it in this way, and it's just. So the thing is, I was so excited and so happy with that I'm like, we're never going to top this. And I'm working on part 4 now, right? Inviting some more people to it to participate. We hopefully aren't going to stop until all the letters are written in a version so that you get this, great content while driving in your car or going to the gym or whatever. But then we started the Halbertology program, and boy, we knocked it out of the park with content. I don't care. I wouldn't care if that thing sold another unit ever. I would, I'm taking notes, and I am, re-going over what people are said, and every single person who's heard or been a part of it is redesigning their business and their everything based on what they're learning in that program. So it was, so those are the things that I've been working on recently that have just got me, if you can't tell, really, really excited about it.
Come on, Bond, tell us how you really feel. Like, honestly.
Well, it's another key to selling marketing. If you create something just that is the best, not only do the copyright itself, because all you got to do is tell people about it, but you have, people can tell your energy and your passion for it. I promoted a lot of stuff that was my dad's, and, very successfully. I've promoted a lot of stuff that was other people's, and very successfully. But you'll go back through other podcasts where I've explained this trick, or maybe even the review trick, or anything, anywhere. Look at all any sales letter or anything that I've ever written, or products that we've sold, or anything like that. You will never find the passion that I've got now for those 2 products. And and I love the fact that my biggest problem is deciding which of these fantastic programs to spend my effort on this week.
That's awesome.
And it makes going to work a lot of fun. And all of these ladies and gentlemen that have helped us with this programs and the things that we're doing, they are so giving and wonderful. They don't say, oh, sure, I'll do it. They say, thank you for letting me be a part of it. And we're, it's like a big thank you back and forth fest. No, thank you for doing this. And thank you for just providing so much, and, and not, pitching, but just answering every single question we have as though me and you are just sitting around in a bar talking, and that it's all going to be kept secret. In fact, even some of the guys are like, you're not going to, okay, I'll tell you, but you can't tell this to people who are outside of the program. I don't want this out there for free. And we have to swear to them that we would. And it was just, I don't know. It's just, I could go on and on and on about it. It's the programs are the first time that I've ever not been able to encapsulate how great something is, even if you gave me a half page to write that headline. It's, by the time we're done with the next marketing plan for it is, because when we started it, we really, like the sales letter that's up for it now is just, it doesn't even really describe what it is we created. It really does not. What we're going to end up having to do is give you, try several hooks at the beginning, and do a little sizzle reel that shows these guys going, okay, and, because they're in the middle of the meeting saying things, okay, I'll share this, but don't let it get around, or this is what we just discovered now, and all of this detailed info, and then it'll be like 60 pages of bullets, because, I don't know how many we did, but I mean, the content in there is it's almost overwhelming to the point where we have to now go and explain, look, start with a little philosophy, pick one of these avenues where a lot of your clients and target prospects are. Start with that. We give you the not only the basics but the really nuanced new stuff, and then branch out into the other avenues and add that. Build it up like a Lego house or something. Just great stuff, and I'm just super proud to be a part of it.
Bond, thank you. Yes, I'm so glad that you were able to bring us into the fold and share some of your knowledge and wisdom and some of the insights into what you're doing and the lessons you've learned along the way. This has been an immensely valuable hour and a half for myself. You've always been so open and forthcoming. I mean, we've chatted a few times. So I just appreciate this so much, man. So what are the best ways for people to reach out to you? Where's the best sites, like URLs to visit, or where should we send them?
Well, yeah, obviously the GaryHalbertLetter.com. Don't forget the.
Right.
But I actually started, doing a little bit recently on BondHalbert.com. I'm starting to build a funnel there, and actually you go there. There's a video on how to get your first job as a paid professional copywriter without references, samples, or a reputation, or without pestering your friends and family, as I say. But you can go and join that. And if you join up on that blog, I'm working on putting together some copywriting checklists and doing some Google Hangouts to explain those. But that's a good place to follow me personally. And if you need to reach out, and my dad, I got this from my dad. My dad is always open. You talk to these guys, and they're like, I couldn't believe it. I called Gary's number, and he picked up the phone.
Yeah.
But you can. I'm not that open because the audience is so huge. I can't afford to be. But I will give you an email address that I check, which is bond@thegaryhalbertletter.com. So, but and so follow the Gary Halbert Letter. We do have a side site, which is where we put a lot of more paid products, because we try to preserve what my father created at the Gary Halbert Letter. But now that we've proven that we're respectful of what he did and his position, that everybody is now like, okay, yeah, we get that, but we want more of what you guys are doing, because you're taking it into the new world and the new millennium. And so until we did that, we did create a site called halbertizing.com with an S. We own it both with the Z and the S, but halbertizing.com. And that's where, we basically, when we sell content, that's where the content is usually listed or bought. But, the best places for me are bondhalbert.com and thegaryhalbert.com, which my father would say are very cleverly named.
Bond, that is so awesome. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for coming on today and just putting it down and sharing wholeheartedly with my listeners. You and your father both are inspirations, people that I owe my education and the success that I've had. Just like you said, you would attribute a lot of your success to your father. Isaac Newton, if I've seen further than others, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And so it's just an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today and to honor your father's memory and help keep his legacy alive, and even just pave the way for the next generation of marketers and what that's going to bring. So thank you so much, man. And yeah, just wish you and your family all the best, and thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.